Either we are there or not, ITSPmagazine still gets the best stories. There are plenty of conferences and all sorts of events that spark our curiosity and allow us to start conversations with some of the world's brightest minds. In person or virtually, we sit down with them at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Together, we discover what the synergy of these three elements means for the future of humanity. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Marco.
Sean, what's going on?
I'm starving, my friend. I'm starving.
You're starving?
Yes.
Yeah? Is any robot delivery there in Manhattan?
I'm going way left of delivery. I'm going to making it.
You're going pizza.
Robots.
You're going pizza slice. I know what you're gonna do.
I love a good slice of pizza.
Oh, you're in New York. That's a good place to have pizza. But
every corner I turn, there's a bar I can hop into and grab a slice for sure.
Just cannot wait for that bar to just be like a robotic bartender that serve you 3D printed food. How does that sound?
I'm sure they exist in the city. I've not come across one yet. Certainly none in my neighborhood, but that I'm aware of anyway. But I did come across a barista robot the other day.
Oh, very cool.
I think it was Midtown somewhere.
Very cool.
I didn't see it in action. It was on break.
They take break too.
They clocked out of the time clock. I think.
Oh my God, this is fun. You know what is fun, Sean, is that this is part of course, with a little bit of entertainment to start the episode. This is about CES, our coverage of that fantastic event where I'm sure that we're going to be kind of like the Jetson there with robots everywhere, flying toasters and all that kind of stuff. And we are talking to a bunch of people that actually talk there. They are on panels. They're keynotes or part of the organizers. And today we're actually going to talk about a panel that is, of course, about food, 3D printed food and robotics. So, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Nice to see you all. You definitely buried the lead with that intro.
Right?
I was like, are we talking about our research here?
We're gonna go. We lower the level to a point that everybody's comfortable. I can't go lower than that.
I like that future you depicted.
All right, so let's start with you, who you are, and then you can ready go for what you're going to talk about in your panel.
Yeah, happy to be here. So my name is Jonathan Blutinger. I am a food robotics engineer coming from Columbia University and working slightly with Redefine Meat, who's a plant-based meat company. But my background's all in mechanical engineering. I'm not a food person. I'm not a food scientist. I got onto this mostly during my PhD at Columbia. I followed a professor, Hod Lipson, who was doing a lot of work with self-aware robots that can create, innovative different things. And one of these things was a robot that could 3D print food. So initially, this was kind of a weird esoteric topic, but as I kind of got into it more, I did a lot of research around characterizing lasers for cooking purposes, and then eventually developing a machine that can not only 3D print food for you, but also cook it at the same time. So developing a digital cooking platform of sorts that can cook meals for you. So developing the hardware and the software, soup to nuts of this kind of entire platform. And I guess that's what kind of landed me a spot on this panel.
I love it. And I'm excited about this conversation for many reasons. One, it's a topic that I love, food, but also technology. And I'm really interested in your role of robotics engineer. And I want to get to the food part of it in a moment because I have some questions on that. But tell me a little bit about robotics engineering. I don't know that it was something that was available to me when I was considering going to college and university. I went to the software engineering world of things. Clearly manufacturing, robotics engineering there, but not I don't know what I'm trying to say. Tell us a little about your journey into that world and what some of the things are
for sure
for that. Yeah,
for sure. And it's funny you say that, because now when I go back to give talks at high school or primary school that I grew up at, they all know what 3D printers are, which is a crazy idea to me. I gave a talk at my primary school, and these first, second, third graders showed a 3D printer on the slide, and everyone was like nodding their head. They knew what it was. I'm like, we don't even have those, and we barely had those in college. They was like just starting to become a thing. So maybe that dates me as well, which is kind of weird. But no, so the idea of food robotics engineering. So my background, like I said, is all mechanical engineering. It's mostly design manufacturing, but within mechanical engineering, there's a lot of subspecialties. You can do, thermodynamics, heat transfer, design. So I kind of went more towards the design route. And then during my PhD, I just got involved a lot with, developing these machines that can do different functionalities. So I think the distinction between robotics and typical mechanical engineering is robotics is you're building more with your hands. You're integrating not just mechanical, but also electrical and coding. So a little bit software, a little bit electrical engineering, and then mostly mechanical design. So you kind of have the one that you fall back on, which for me is mechanical design and in manufacturing. But you get a little breadth of knowledge in all these other kind of, complementary fields. And then that can be applied to a lot of different things. And in my case, I applied that towards food, which kind of like you touched on, it's an interesting field. A lot of people are interested in it. People I find are very emotional about food. I've learned in this process, more so than perhaps religion and politics. That's a very hot take, but I stand by it. So yeah, I think it's a field that can be kind of contentious and interesting, especially when you talk about automation in food. And there's a lot of maybe biases with certain new technologies. So yeah, it's an interesting field to kind of get involved with.
And I love that you went there, because when I'm a software engineer at heart, I look at the operations for all this stuff in the magazine. Mm-hmm. And I think I share a similar goal with the things that I work on from an automation perspective, which is to save time. Well, improve accuracy and save time. Occasionally I'll get into the space of, can I make something better with automation and robotics? So I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about what you're doing. Is it about making processes more efficient to improve the quality by eliminating or reducing human error? Or is we're making food way better because we can print it and engineer it and streamline processes using robotics?
It's a great question. I think initially I saw it as, this is going to be such a much more efficient way to do all these great things. But as I've gotten more in the weeds with the technology, right now, it's hard if you were to look at this in a short term, you could say, this is not faster. This is not more efficient. This is not cheaper by any means, but it's an entirely new way to combine food ingredients, which just opens the door to so many new possibilities we couldn't even imagine. So that's where I think as the engineer and the tinkerer, I get really excited. But similar to you, I'm also very pragmatic. I feel like most engineers are, where if I can do something more efficiently and cheaper, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to move towards an automated kind of realm. I see this with fast casual restaurants, especially with some of these bigger companies, which are starting to create some kind of robotic offshoot where they're trying to automate their processes. So without naming any names, you've probably seen the articles about this in the paper a lot. But yeah, I think for me, so right now it's hard to see that end line, but I think where it gets exciting is when you combine software with food, which hasn't really been done in a big way. Anytime you touch software with an industry, it just totally propels it into all these different verticals. And we haven't seen that for food yet. So I think that's for me is what drives me.
All right, let me bring it to society, because what's interesting and what people should know is that there is 100% Italian and 250% Italian on this. And I can picture a lot of chefs in restaurants in Florence, or even my mom and my dad say, hell no. Like, that's not going to happen, right? At least for the quality part of things. But I am in technology, and I think that we can reach the level as we are with other creative, because for me, food, it's creative as well. So what I want to go with this is that you're going to be on this panel that is called 3 Printed Food and Robotics Chef, with 4 more people, if I'm understanding, including the editor of The Spoon, which is a publication that the name, I think it gives it away, talks about food. And you're kind of, I think, projecting into the future, which is my favorite things to do. So what is possible now? You already said it's kind of slow. It's maybe not better, not faster, not more economical. So number one could be, why do we do it? And what can we expect in the next decade? I believe that's what you're going to be talking about at the panel.
For sure. And also don't want to pretend to be the person who holds the crystal ball that knows what's going to happen in the future.
Oh, come on. It's the end of the year. You have to do predictions.
There will be, Jonathan, right?
Everybody likes predictions, right? They want to know what happens in 5-10 years. Exactly. I think in my ideal world, if I were to look 10 years in the future, we would ideally have some sort of digital cooking appliance, whether it be strictly a food printer or some kind of laser cooking device or something, some modular assembly of multiple different cooking, almost like a cooking box. I think we're getting closer towards more of an automated kitchen, where these sorts of things will be more ubiquitous and in our homes. There's so much more connectivity happening around this, even with our personal assistants, with our Alexas. I feel like I have to whisper Alexa, because otherwise my Alexa is going to activate, and I'll hear it in the other room. So I think with the whole IoT movement, things are getting so much more connected. It's a no-brainer that you're going to have your smartwatch or your something counting your calories, your energy consumption, and then you have some actionable thing in the kitchen which is going to fill in the gap for you. Because right now we have so many tracking devices, so many things that are gathering all this data on us. But how can we make this actionable? Besides actually making us, look at the numbers and adjust maybe our step counts. If there's something that can actually supplement us in terms of food that can actually use this information, that's where it gets exciting for me. So I think a cooking appliance that can customize the meals for you. And I think that's where kind of the food printing element comes in. When you have an assembly machine that has all the ingredients, all of the micro macronutrients, and you can dial it in much more than, say, if you go out to a restaurant where half the time you're ordering something off a menu, but you're not actually in the kitchen seeing the chef make it for you. So do you actually know what goes into the food? So in a weird way, I think digital cooking brings you closer to the food, and it creates more transparency, and you actually get to see what you're eating, which I think is really important for health and nutrition.
Because it's software. Software is driven by data, right? Mm-hmm. We're also talking about connecting it to robotics, printing the food, obviously putting it in the machine that's going to cook it or cool or whatever process is required. But I can envision a world where you mentioned the restaurant, right? There are famous chefs that have recipes and a process, and if we can replicate those at home using these machines, that'd be pretty cool. I don't know if that opens up a whole another world of commerce, where instead of going to the Times cooking and downloading a recipe, you actually subscribe your system to the recipe catalog, and away you go.
Yeah. I think that's definitely an avenue. And I think in other ways too, it's maybe when an issue I have in trying to predict how this can be used in our lives, it's because it's almost as if we're wielding a new weapon in our kitchen. So if you think about a lot of the foods we're used to cooking, Marco, you alluded to Italian cuisine, the nature of having love in the food, I think, is a big thing culturally for a lot of Europeans and, people around the world when each of their cuisines that they cook. So in no way am I trying to replace the pizza napoletana or anything like that. I think there's something to be said about traditional home style cooking. I think treat this as like having a new cooking appliance that allows you to cook a different type of food. Something that perhaps is layered in a new way, or something where you get inspiration from your normal style of cooking, but in no ways actually substitutes what you're used to eating.
I can actually see, sorry if I jump on this, but like in healthcare application for that, like the well-being, where you're like, okay, I need to dial in all these things for whatever condition somebody may have, of course, for a diet. And then, but if I really want to indulge in really good food, I'm still going to go to the restaurant. And I cannot see a pizzaiolo robotic rolling a pizza dough in the air. But another application I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm wrong, but maybe more of you cannot lead into that with more fast food, but I'm also thinking larger places like hospitals, for example, where you need to really pump out a lot of food, and maybe the manual labor, and maybe you're not paying attention so much to the taste of the tomato as you would do in a 5-star restaurant.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think about this in a setting where you need more of, you need to dial in more or be able to keep track of the nutritional profile of foods for people who perhaps have certain dietary restrictions. So like you mentioned, hospital use, I think, is a great example. You can treat this almost like a nutritionist and a personal chef in one device. So it can recommend meals, it can track your eating habits. So perhaps people who have certain dietary deficiencies too, who are celiac or maybe certain gluten intolerances or iron deficiencies. And, I know a lot of research this is also being looked at with the Army, for soldiers. They need to be able to perform at the top of their, top of their energy. Everyone's a little bit different. Everyone needs a slightly different catered meal. But another interesting one too is, which we didn't kind of see when I first started doing this research, is for alternative meats. So when you're looking at trying to recreate structures or intricate muscle patterns of different foods, you can do this and dial in fibers, textures, flavors more carefully, which is super interesting.
Or astronauts and Mars. Astronauts and Mars,
Fast food and ice cream.
Yeah, as opposed to bringing a chef, you just bring a machine with you. It's smaller. Yeah.
I want to talk briefly about what can be printed. So clearly, meats. I'm wondering what other types of foods and meals. I can see where a robot puts together a hamburger with the 3D printed piece of meat, and I don't know. Do you print the bun and all the other stuff? I don't know if that makes sense. So that's all I'm trying to figure out. What can be printed? Yeah, and why printed versus just a slab of something? Yeah,
that's it. It's a great point. I think first, maybe the issue why some people have trouble kind of picturing, because usually when I talk about 3D printed food, I think people first think that these are ingredients that are made in some lab. They're science-based. They're not real foods, but really printing is just depositing ingredients. It's a very fancy way of saying depositing, but I think in our heads, we think printing and we think industrial processes. We think old Xerox printing machines with, inks and plastic and all this metallic components, but really that's just a bias. So I think what I say is you've definitely had 3D printed foods. Pasta is printed, when they extrude it through the molds, they get cut off. Burgers are in a way printed because you have to grind the meat, and then that's how you get your patty. So those are probably more 1D printing, one-dimensional printing. 3D comes in kind of when you can move around in 3D space. So in terms of a broad stroke, that might kind of hone your thoughts more. But I think in general, right now, when we're printing, anything that can flow through a nozzle can be printed. So liquids, pastes, powders, small solids. So really, we can print most things. They just perhaps, you couldn't print a whole pear or something like that. You'd have to first turn it into some sort of, a paste that can be flowed. So, but most of the foods we eat start in a soft form. They get their texture, like burgers, for example, when you actually cook them. So it's kind of a misnomer that we say, okay, all these foods are soft, but once you cook it, you get that texture and that crunch. So really, you can fill in the gap there.
Yeah, I really think I agree. It's like maybe shaping or molding or
Exactly.
like a more that's one of those cases where the word carry and heavy weight on the perception of things. Let's get the last couple of minutes, and we already discussed this. You're gonna come back on Redefine Society, maybe bring some other people with you, and we're gonna go much deeper into all of these. Couple of minutes to end with the presenting, or at least asking people to come. They're going to CES or watching it online. I don't know if it's going to be streamed or not, but the panel you're going to be on, which is going to be Wednesday, January 10 at the Venetian, level 4. We put this information in the notes anyway, but yep, couple of words and an invitation to people that may be interested in this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll definitely be a very interesting discussion. The panel brings together people from academic backgrounds like myself, people who are in industry, people developing these cooking appliances, not just cooking, but also different types of foods. So it definitely brings together a diverse panel, which is always what you like to see in a panel, a little bit of push and pull. And Mike Wolf, the host of The Spoon, and who started Food CES. So he's a big name in this field, understands a lot about the industry. And I think you'll do a really good job of kind of guiding the discussion to thinking about kind of what's coming in the future, what you can expect. And yeah, I'm really excited by it. This is my first CES. I've always heard about this. It's a very renowned conference at this point. Everybody knows, most people know about it in the tech world, at least. So I'm super excited about it. And I think it'll be a great discussion.
No doubts about it.
Going to be delicious. Great lineup there, folks. And yes, I did say it.
And food will be served. Right?
Food puns. I got to say, it comes out like it's hotcakes for me.
I love it.
Well, exciting.
Well, this is really cool. I appreciate you sharing some of the background on the role and what's possible. And I'm excited to hear what comes out of this panel conversation. Hopefully everybody gets a chance to join you there for that. And I'm looking forward to the Redefining Society episode as well. But in the meantime, Marco, we have a lot coming from CES. So
yep, a lot of conversation are lining up. This is one of the first, actually number 2. So if you're listening to this, stay tuned, subscribe. We will have a list. I'm thinking more than another 5 minimum, and all before the show. And then we will keep talking about what is going on there. Big event, and we're excited to be somehow part of that as well. And I'm going to go have an avocado toast now. I don't know if you can print that, but I'm going to just slice it myself.
Guaranteed, if at the end of our discussion, you will be hungry by the end of it. If you're not, then we didn't do our job.
Of course.
Exactly. I'm hungry now. I'm going for a slice. I'm not
good. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much. Sean, thank you so much. Marco, thank you myself so much. Bye, everybody. Stay tuned for more.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of our on-location conversation. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share ITSPmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.